The village in it with a map and a plan. No place too tiny for this determined man. Crossing the counties one by one, you'll see in every English corner a bit of history.
The East Lindsey series is sponsored by Gainsborough Cycles 01427 617 752. For all your cycling needs, this is your one-stop shop located at 20 Ropery Road, Gainsborough, or online at gainsboroughcycles.com. There's a link in the description. Gainsborough Cycles, ask for Trevor Halstead. Welcome back to East Lindsey again, folks. Now I've got an interesting little village for you today. I always seem to say that, don't I, at the beginning of episodes. These villages are always interesting. They've got loads of stories to tell us. Now this one has a connection to something that we've been seeing from a distance over the past couple of episodes, actually. In Hammeringham, you could see in the very, very, very far distance, if you zoom right in, Boston Stump. Now Boston Stump has a connection to this village by way of its bells. Welcome to MAVIS Enderby. MAVIS Enderby, Aindreathie's farm belonging to the MAVIS family. Continuing our journey between Horncastle and Spilsby this week, today we find ourselves in a place with a semi-familiar name. A little while ago now we visited a place called Wood Enderby. Well, here we have another Enderby, only this time the full and complete name of this one sounds like it could be your grandmother. This is MAVIS Enderby, which, believe it or not, has the same derivation as a village we covered in York. This was once owned by the Malbis family, the same lot who we spoke a great deal about in Acaster Malbis a couple of years ago. They clearly got around a bit. Over time, the Malbis name here has morphed into the more recognisable moniker Mavis, and that transformation has led to this village being featured in a number of literary works. The one that springs to mind straight away is Douglas Adams's spoof dictionary, The Meaning of Liff. In it, Adams defines MAVIS Enderby as the almost completely forgotten girlfriend from your distant past for whom your wife has a completely irrational jealousy and hatred. MAVIS Enderby was also used as the name of a character in Bridget Jones's diary. The village has also featured in a poem called The High Tide on the Coast of Lincolnshire 1571, where there's a reference to a peal of bells. These ties are all well and good, but what exactly does MAVIS Enderby have for us to physically see? Well, not a lot. It's a tiny village which is bypassed for the most part by the B1195. Within the village though, there's a lovely church, an old school, a chapel and a clutch of houses. It all sits around a small square with a green at one corner. Let's have a walk. Here's the map from 1900, and if this was a game of spot the difference, you'd struggle to find any changes between this and what's here today. The main area of settlement is here, with the majority of MAVIS Enderby based around a square of land off the B1195. Virtually all of the population live around that square, although there are a few scattered properties and isolated farm buildings here and there. They're not massively important though. MAVIS Enderby is a very woody parish. You can see there are clumps of trees around the village, and that leafiness also extends into the main square. Indeed, walk around this one and you're met with a sea of green at virtually every turn. Let's not forget, we're on the wolds here, which used to be blanketed in forests. The main village of MAVIS Enderby is small enough to fit within one frame if we zoom in. As you can see here, it really doesn't have a lot to it. Marked here, there's a church, a chapel and an old school. All three of those still stand, whilst the rest of the village is residential. We start this short walk at the village green, a fairly sizable chunk of land on the B1195, where it meets Spilsby Hill from Bolingbroke. This area has the highest concentration of residential properties anywhere in MAVIS Enderby. A lot of them are 20th century because what little expansion MAVIS Enderby has had over the past few decades has been focused on this, the main road to Spilsby. It makes sense when you think about it. This is the widest road in the village, the rest are narrow back lanes. This village is laid out in a square shape. The B1195 forms one side of that square. Our first job here is to take a walk up to the church and the old school, using one of the other narrower sides. You have to be fairly brave to take a car down here. Here's the old school, which immediately adjoins the southern edge of the churchyard. This was an infant school. Older children never came here. Instead, they went to another school in Wraithby, the next village over towards Spilsby. The oldest part of this building features something called diaper work in dark brick. Diaper work is a term we're not familiar with yet, I don't think anyway. It's not what it sounds like. In brickwork, it refers to a decorative surface treatment. It's achieved using a repeating geometric pattern, often diamonds or squares. These are formed by using bricks of contrasting colours or varying textures. The term is derived from the French word diapre, meaning to adorn or embellish. It was particularly prominent in Tudor and Victorian times, and it's the latter of those periods from which this old school dates. It was one of a number of village additions in Victorian times thanks to the efforts of the Reverend George Ward, rector of the parish between 1869 and 1926. Okay, so we've arrived at the churchyard here in MAVIS Enderby, and you can get to it into this pretty simply because there's no high wall or fence or whatever. You don't even have to go through the lit gate. You can just walk up the path at the side of it like you've just seen. So here is the church. Now, as ever, it's a church and this has plenty of things to tell us. It's got a lot of historical information. And while we're here in the churchyard, we'll explain something called the Brides of Enderby, or what the Brides of Enderby are. They're a set of bells, but they're not in this church. They're in Boston Stump. Let's explain. MAVIS Enderby's church is dedicated to St Michael. It's a medieval building originally, dating from 1280. Most of it, though, is 14th or 15th century. It does have some bits of Victorian restoration too. They were carried out by two architects, James Fowler of Louth in 1875 and Hodgson Fowler in 1894. St Michael's is built mainly of greenstone rubble, although it does have some ashlar dressings. The roof is made of both Welsh and Westmoreland slates. Features-wise, this one has a recited 11th century Saxon grave slab which stands in the doorway of the tower, as well as a remnant of a 14th century cross located in the adjoining graveyard. MAVIS Enderby had a peal of bells named after it, called the Brides of Enderby. The bells in question are not the ones in St Michael's Church though. Instead, they're located within Boston Stump. The peal is mentioned in Jean Inglow's poem The High Tide on the Coast of Lincolnshire, 1571. In the poem, the ringing of the Enderby bells is the generally recognised signal of approaching danger to the neighbouring countryside, and that danger could take many forms. The bells would warn people of pirates, river flooding, or high tides breaching the dikes. Supposedly, the name commemorates the womenfolk of MAVIS Enderby. It's a little odd, so some people think, that MAVIS Enderby has this connection to the coast. Nobody is totally sure who the brides were and what their connection to a warning peal might have been. In any event, the poem is pretty famous and it's been used by a few famous people. An extract from it can be found at the head of Rudyard Kipling's short story At the Pit's Mouth. The full poem is very long, so here's a short extract from it.
All fresh the level pasture lay, and not a shadow mote be seen, save where full 5 good miles away the steeple towered from out the green. And lo, the great bell far and wide was heard in all the countryside, that Saturday at eventide. The swanherds where their sedges are moved on in sunset's golden breath. The shepherd lads I heard afar, and my son's wife Elizabeth, till floating o'er the grassy sea came down that kindly message free, the brides of MAVIS Enderby. Then some looked up into the sky, and all along where Lindis flows, to where the goodly vessels lie, and where the lordly steeple shows. They said, "And why should this thing be? What danger lowers by land or sea?" They ring the tune of Enderby. For evil news from Mablethorpe, of pirate galleys warping down, for ships ashore beyond the Scorp, they have not spared to wake the town. But while the west been red to see, and storms be none, and pirates flee, why ring the Brides of Enderby? I looked without, and lo, my son came riding down with might and main. He raised a shout as he drew on, till all the welkin rang again. "Elizabeth, Elizabeth!" A sweeter woman ne'er drew breath than my son's wife, Elizabeth. "The old sea wall," he cried, "is down, the rising tide comes on apace, and boats adrift in yonder town go sailing up the market-place." He shook as one that looks on death. "God save you, mother!" straight he saith. "Where is my wife Elizabeth?" "Good son, where Lindis winds her way, with her 2 bairns I marked her long, and ere yon bells began to play, afar I heard her milking song." He looked across the grassy lea, to right, to left. Ho, Enderby! They rang the Brides of Enderby. With that he cried and beat his breast, for lo, along the river's bed a mighty eygre reared his crest, and up the Lindis raging sped. It swept with thunderous noises loud, shaped like a curling snow-white cloud, or like a demon in a shroud. And rearing Lindis backward pressed, shook all her trembling banks amain, then madly at the eygre's breast flung up her weltering walls again. Then banks came down with ruin and rout, then beaten foam flew round about, then all the mighty floods were out. So far, so fast the eygre drave, the heart had barely time to beat, before a shallow seething wave sobbed in the grasses at our feet. The feet had hardly time to flee, before it brake against the knee, and all the world was in the sea. Upon the roof we sat that night, the noise of bells went sweeping by. I marked the lofty beacon light stream from the church tower, red and high, a lurid mark and dread to see, and awesome bells they were to me, that in the dark rang Enderby.
Next door to the church is the Rectory, although it has a different name these days, Mavis Enderby House. Again, it was the Reverend George Ward who was responsible for the construction of the Rectory in 1871. It would go on to be the property of the Lord Bishop of Lincoln, and in 1957 it was he who sold the house as a freehold property, to be known as Mavis Enderby House from then onwards. So now we have a walk to complete the rest of this village via the rest of the square. We've so far only seen one side. The remaining 3 sides have very little on them. Indeed, most of what we're about to encounter here is either residential or it's a massive greenery. Mavis Enderby is a village that's literally full of trees. This is hardly surprising. The Lincolnshire wolds were once covered in trees and forests. We have seen similar wolds villages such as Fulletby, for example, where the number of trees dwarfs the population total. So then, this is a chance to fill in some bits of Mavis Enderby's history from the time of Doomsday to now. In the book, it was recorded as Enderby. There was no mention of Mavis or anything similar. It was a substantial village at that time. Mavis Enderby was certainly a lot bigger than it is now. There are earthworks all around it in the fields. Now it's just a small hamlet surrounded by countryside, farmland, and an area of outstanding natural beauty. There has been very little change in the past 200 years. Enderby is a Viking title, distinctively of Old Norse and English origin. There are several Enderbys across Lincolnshire, and this is the second time we've met one. Wood Enderby is one we've also been to, but there's another, Bag Enderby, not too far away from here. This settlement would grow into Enderby Malbis in 1302, with the Malbis part of the name stemming from its association with the Malbis family. They owned the manor at that time, as well as owning land at Acaster Malbis in York. Over time, Malbis would be recorded in several different ways until eventually it became Mavis. This village, therefore, has no connection to any women called Mavis, it's just a coincidence. That hasn't stopped people using the name Mavis Enderby for fictional female characters. Indeed, in Bridget Jones's diary, written by Helen Fielding, Mavis Enderby is a character. Mavis appears in the diary as someone Bridget's mother uses as a reference point, particularly for her own transformation. Perhaps more infamous is its appearance in Douglas Adams's The Meaning of Life. That's a spoof dictionary of things that there aren't any words for yet. According to it, Mavis Enderby is the almost completely forgotten girlfriend from your distant past for whom your wife has a completely irrational jealousy and hatred.
Do you know, in every village this morning, I've met somebody who wanted to chat to me. You know, in some areas, you can walk around with the camera, you can be walking around all day and not talk to anybody. It must just be my, I don't know, the aura I have as a proper Lincolnshire boy. It must be, I must be giving off some kind of signal, I'm not quite sure, but everybody's wanted to talk to me this morning. And the guy who spoke to me just now here in Mavis Enderby, he's the church warden. He was very interested in what I was doing, and he was also very happy that I managed to capture his garden on film, because he's a gardener by trade. It's always nice to see a nice garden, isn't it? Now, we've walked all the way around Mavis Enderby and we still have not yet seen that chapel. I've had to come past the chapel before I could actually get it in, because I was running out of things to film, basically. So what we'll do now is we'll head back up here to the chapel. You can see it just there. There's a flag flying outside of it. So we'll catch that and then we'll move on.
We've made it to the chapel, located on the B1195. We are but a few paces now away from the green where we started. This chapel is no longer used for services. It's been converted into a private dwelling now. A Wesleyan Methodist chapel, this was built in 1877 by Charles Bell. It's made of red brick and has a gabled roof. The building was converted to a house at some point after 1978 and was heavily altered during the process, with the addition of 6 dormers and several lean-to extensions. And that's it, folks. We've made it around the square, and so we've made it around Mavis Enderby. Not bad, actually. We managed to get around the whole thing without encountering anyone called Mavis, and certainly nobody that would fit Douglas Adams's rather damning definition. See you tomorrow. Now, just before I go, remember, this video is part of a huge project to visit every civil parish in England. That's more than 10,000. These routes are pre-planned, and due to time constraints, I can't cover every detail or walk down every street. Please don't complain if this video missed something out. I pronounce names how I choose to. I am very aware that local dialect may vary, and I don't take kindly to criticism about this. You've been warned. It's impossible to know everything too. If this video was terrible, make your own. If you're a regular watcher of The Village Idiot, you're not the only one. If you've got a small business, why not use my videos to advertise it? Leave a comment below if you're interested. And finally, thanks for watching this episode, everybody. Give us a like and a subscribe if you've enjoyed this episode, and share it with your friends and relatives. It all helps to keep this mission going. Until next time, I've been Andy, also known as The Village Idiot, and I'm out.